Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to another match review where Chelsea kicked off their Premier League campaign with a disappointing 0-0 draw with Crystal Palace. So in this video, I'm going over what Enzo Maresca said in the post-match press conference, giving my own thoughts and opinions on the game, and of course, checking the stats to see if it matches up with the eye test. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k before the end of 2025. Kicking things off with what Enzo Maresca has said immediately after the game. They asked him, "You mentioned Tosin is the only one that could play Levi's role. Are you worried about his injury?" And Maresca simply said, "I already spoke about that." He goes on to say that Tosin has a physical problem. We don't know for how long. Nizar Kinsella reported what Maresca said on Ashimpong's performance today, and he said, "Very good, very good. We already showed some confidence with Josh last season. He dealt well with Mateta, and overall, he had a good game." Now, this is very interesting because, first off, Tosin's injury is a lot longer than what we originally were told, because we were told that he was taken off as a precaution to make sure he wasn't injured for any longer period of time, because obviously Levi Colwell's injury is a huge blow to us. But now Maresca has said we don't know how long he's going to be out for because it's something physical. We know that he pulled up in one of the training sessions, felt something go, but, it was kind of like a, precaution, see if he's okay. It's now not that. So that is quite concerning, really, because there's this whole debate within Chelsea fans. I talk to you guys every day in the comments. Do we need to go in for a new centre-back? Do we trust who we've got with the depth? Now, I've looked at our depth. Everyone's looked at our depth. I've seen the game today. I do feel confident in the depth that we have, but the way that we performed today was just not it. And I'm not going to sit here and just dump on the team, because it wasn't the worst performance I've ever seen. It was more disappointing and frustrating than anything, because this does not look like the team that was playing in those preseason games. Now, I will say that Crystal Palace set up perfectly. A back five, stacked the midfield, made it very, very difficult for us to break them down. Right, they just did that. They did it very well. However, I agree with Maresca on Ashimpong's performance. Defensively, he was outstanding. The tackles he was putting in, he kept Mateta quiet. Unreal. The one caveat to that, from what I noticed, and again, I'm not professional, it's just from what I saw, I felt like Josh and Chalobah, mainly Josh, was giving the ball away a lot in the build-up. Now, I'm not blaming him for anything. Let's not, get it twisted. I'm not doing that. All I am saying is, in that build-up, we really missed Levi Colwill today, and we now know how vital he is to an Enzo Maresca system. I mean, we knew that anyway, but not physically seeing him there, not being able to bring him off the bench to kind of change things up, we massively missed him. Now, there's a few confusing things with myself watching this game of... Knowing the way that Palace set up, I was very curious and interested as to why Maresca was so hell-bent in inverting, because it was so stacked in the midfield and they'd had a back five. I thought we might have attacked with width a lot more. I felt like Jamie Gittens really struggled in a game like today, and that's not, again, nothing on him. It's his first time kicking ball in the Premier League, but he really struggled to get into the game. I felt like Enzo Fernandez was very quiet, but trying to get involved, but playing out wide in most of the game as well, like deeper, not high and wide, but more of a wider area than more central. We were inverting Cucurella. I felt like defensively we had a good performance, but they were just individual errors in terms of constantly giving the ball away. Caicedo looked rusty at times, but he also had a fantastic game winning the ball back in impossible positions as normal. It's just a very frustrating performance for us. There was no clear-cut chances created. We couldn't break down that low block. Palace dominated in the midfield for that most of that first half in terms of stopping Chelsea. We had a lot of the possession, and I'm sure the stats will show that. We had a lot of the possession at big spells of the game, but we couldn't do anything with it. And I feel like, yes, Maresca has said publicly how he feels about a centre-back. The higher-ups at Chelsea know what he thinks about a centre-back. But physically seeing, or with our own eyes, watching No Colwill and seeing how we set up, it's massively different. And I'm not saying that he's the one player that makes the whole team tick, but he's a very important cog in a very well-run machine. And without having him in there, it just looks like there is a big drop-off. And now, do I think that Josh can go on and improve? Of course. Like I said, it's not his fault. I'm not blaming him. He's a young guy. He's been backed and given minutes, and I think he's going to have a breakout season. I really, really do. And at the end of the day, we didn't lose the game. We could have, and I'll speak about that in just a second, but we didn't. It's points on the board. I'm not going to sit here and whinge. It was points on the board. It's not the most ideal result to start the season, for sure. But at the same time, at least we didn't lose. But I feel like Andre Santos did well when he came on. He did miss a big chance at the end. Estevao took the game into his own hands and was really trying to break that low block down, creating his own chances, trying to create chances for others. I think he had a very good game. I think João Pedro struggled to get a lot of service today, but he still got stuck in, has that grit, and I like that about him. Delap obviously really tried when he came on as well, but without no clear-cut chances, without breaking down that low block, we just didn't really create anything. I think off the top of my head, I think we had like one big chance from Santos at the end, and the rest were kind of half chances that trickled through. Palace also did very well, hitting us on the counter where they could, using the space well, blocking out the midfield or packing out the midfield, defensively so well drilled. They just kept us at bay, and it was frustrating. Now, the annoying thing from our perspective as fans is we saw this a lot last season, and we've gone out and bought players, and the system has adapted. We've got different players with different roles, etc. You would have thought that we would have found a way to unlock that low block, but it just wasn't to be today. It's as simple as that. I felt Palmer was trying so hard to get involved in the game. Nothing was coming up for him, really, because, again, Palace were just so well drilled. Now, when it comes to the way that we set up, like I mentioned earlier, with us inverting, and I thought it was quite strange because of how packed the midfield was, and thought we would attack wide areas. But Pedro Neto was working so hard, probably one of our better players in terms of trying to create something. Had a few crosses that kind of went all the way through, and we just didn't create enough at the end of the day. Now, is this a precedent in terms of how we're going to play for the rest of the season? I don't think so. I think that this is just a game where it showcases how good Palace have been in recent games. They've just come off the back of beating two of the best teams in England, winning trophies in both of those games. So they're not to be underestimated. That's not an excuse for Chelsea, because we've also been fantastic winning the Club World Cup and in the two very quick turnaround pre-season games. Yes, there were wholesale changes in those games for us and the opposition, but we really showcase what we can do when we can, break teams down and create chances. Such a free-flowing attack in football. So it was a bit of a shock to the system, a bit frustrating, a bit disappointing that we couldn't get it over the line because we just couldn't break Palace down. And it's testament to them, and also where we weren't on it. We looked slow, we looked lethargic, we looked like we were still on pre-season at times in that first half, which was a very stark difference to what we have seen recently. We did make some improvements in the second half in terms of our overall performance. We were moving the ball a bit quicker, nowhere near to the standard of what we needed it to be at, but there was a big difference from how we moved it in the first half and the second half. Now, before I talk about the second half, I want to talk about this disallowed free kick. Palace were robbed, in my opinion. I don't know what the rules are, clearly, because I was doing a live watch along, I was talking to chat, and I'm like, I still don't know why it's been disallowed. We were let off massively there. Well struck free kick from Eze. I still personally feel like Sanchez could have done better in terms of it was straight at him. However, I do recognise that it had a lot of pace on it. But straight down the keeper's throat, really. He should have got something on it. If it still went in after that, cool. But yeah, unbelievable strike. The fact that it was, chalked off, I was so confused. I'm like, okay, so is it the push on Caicedo? No. Is he offside? No. It's actually because of one of the laws within the game that he was too close to the wall as the ball was kicked. And I was a bit confused because I thought that you could have your own players in the opposition wall at any point. They've been doing that years, but apparently not. So I do feel like Palace were hard done by there, and we were extremely lucky. Of course, I'm grateful. We take it. The game is the game. But I also take that into consideration that we could have quite easily lost this game, because if that had stayed, the game went on the way it did, would it have opened up more? Potentially. Would Palace have closed down even more? More likely. So, there are some positives and negatives. Positives are we had that rotation. They come on and made a little bit of an impact. The negatives were we just couldn't break down Palace and get that goal. It's as simple as that. Delap looked bright when he came on. Gittens didn't have a really good game, but he come off. Estevao looked fantastic when he came on. I think Josh stepped up today defensively. Like I said, I saw him give the ball away a few times, and I kind of thought, Now, again, he's not the reason that we didn't work up in the build-up. Playing against a five-back, Chelsea have always struggled against this. We just always have struggled against a five-back and a packed midfield. So it's not solely his fault, but it's just something to notice. Chalobah gave the ball away a few times. Caicedo looked shaky at moments, giving the ball away. So we just weren't on it. And it was just very frustrating and very surprising to see. But at the end of the day, we still got points on the board. I feel like we can go away to West Ham and get 3 points and really kick our season off. But I also agree with what Enzo Maresca is saying. Like, Ashton played well. Overall game was fantastic. Tosin is a worry, in my opinion. It is a big worry, because if he's out for longer than expected, and Maresca has already come out and said that Fofana can play that role and Tosin can play that role, but Tosin's clearly got more experience playing it because he's been fitter for longer in a Chelsea shirt than Fofana has. And Tosin, they don't know how long he's going to be out for. It could be a shaky few weeks until we at least get some sort of settled centre-back partnership. Does Hato come on and play in that centre-back role? Enzo Maresca says, yes, he can play centre-back, but it's not just about playing left centre-back. It's about being that central centre-back in the back three that can break the lines, who can notice, identify things quicker and, execute on it and build from the back. And obviously, I feel like we did massively miss Colwell today, because I feel like, again, his line-breaking passes, I've always said this, are a cheat code. There may have been other elements of his game last season that wasn't strong. I feel like he has definitely improved. I'm not saying he hasn't. But his line-breaking passes were always a cheat code. We can go from defence to attack with one pass with him, and we massively missed that today. Not to say this is a reflection on how every game is going to be played, but today was just very deflating as a Chelsea fan. That's probably how I would sort of sum it up, deflating. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding what Enzo Maresca has said, and also my thoughts and opinions and the analysis that I've given down in the comments. I love having a conversation with you guys. But we're going to move on to the stats to see if it matches up with the eye test. So as you can see, Chelsea 0, Crystal Palace 0. So if we look at the momentum chart and obviously the key stats, you can see from the momentum that Chelsea had lots of the ball, lots of possession, which is typical of a Maresca style system. Let's be fair. That's just how it really goes. Look at the top stats: 71% possession, 29 to Crystal Palace. The XG of 1.81, nothing being put away. Total shots of 19. I think it was the 81st minute and we'd had one shot on target, which is wild when you think about it. Expected to Palace's 1.07 and they had 12 total shots. Big chances created, 1. We had one big chance created, and I feel like that's probably the Andre Santos one near the end. And the big chances 2 for Crystal Palace. Dean Henderson with player of the match, by the way, which goes to show that we were all over them, we were peppering them, but I just didn't see any clear-cut chances from Chelsea. All half chances, the things that trickled through, or frustration pot shots going through. Yes, Santos had that chance at the end, but that was well over the bar, and it just wasn't falling for us in that sense. But when we look at the key events and the way it's kind of played out, obviously the first thing you see is Eze's goal ruled out by VAR. Honestly, the officiating in this country is wild. Like I said, Palace were robbed, and I'm grateful as a Chelsea fan because it means that we actually got some points on the board. But then Reece James got booked in the first half in the 24th minute, and then we also had some more bookings, Mateta and Munoz, I think is how you pronounce his name. And that was basically it. We just looked slow, lethargic, rusty, and it was just such a surprise to see. Now in the second half, Will Hughes gets booked, and then we make some changes. In the 54th minute, Estevao comes on, and I will say he looks very, very bright. And he was taking the game by the scruff, and even his defensive contributions, he was not afraid to stick a tackle in. I can see him starting Chelsea games very, very soon. And it was a stark difference from seeing Gittens. I know that they obviously played different sides. Neto went to the left-hand side when Estevao came on. I understand that. But I feel like Gittens is definitely a player that plays on the counter when there's space in behind. He can really exploit that. And breaking a low block, yes, he's technically gifted in terms of dribbling and beating a man, which is fantastic. But he just seemed to struggle to get into the game. Now, again, I'm not trying to judge him too hard. It's his first half of football in the Premier League. I'm not expecting him to score a hat-trick. He's very raw, and there's nothing wrong with that. We know what we bought. A 20-year-old who's very, very raw, who's played a lot of games for Dortmund, in and out the side last season because of defensive system changes and management changes. But we know what we signed. I also feel like we still need some improvement on the left-hand side, and hopefully Xavi Simons and the likes of Garnacho coming in does make a difference. But even João Pedro, fantastic player, 5 and 5, obviously 5 and 6 now because he didn't get a goal today. He struggled because, again, it was a low block, no service basically for him. He was still chucking himself around, pressing, sticking tackles in. We love that about him. But then when Liam Delap come on in the 73rd minute, I think it was just injection of fresh legs, someone a bit different of a profile, being a bit more physical, throwing people about a bit. Again, Liam Delap didn't really get many chances. I think there was one where he put through, it was way too wide on the left-hand side, tries swinging the ball back in, and swinging the ball back in, and he didn't manage to keep it in play. It hit the side netting, right? So it is what it is, I suppose. Estevao gets booked for a defensive challenge. In real time, I thought he won the ball, and then the replay, I was like, yeah, he didn't get that at all. He just took out a player. Santos, he looked very fresh when he came on. Enzo Fernandez looked very lethargic today, looked very out of it, looked very just slow. And again, it's not a criticism. I felt like he was playing a lot more out wide than he was centrally. But yeah, he comes on. And then Malo Gusto, I think, played well. Reece James was taken off the 79th minute. A lot of people in the watch along, a lot of chat was saying that they should have taken him off at half time because he was on a yellow, could get a red. I didn't see that coming, if I'm being honest. But Malo Gusto also played well when he came on. And then Eze come off in the 84th minute, and they saw the game out. 6 minutes of added time. That was it, game done. Now the insights, Chelsea have scored 13 goals in the last 5 matches, and Palace had scored 9 in their last 5. And the only thing that separated us was a free kick, which was a foul from Ashampong. No, it was Cucurella, I believe. Either one of the two, can't remember. They both give away free kicks, very similar positions throughout the game. and it was chalked off. So like I said, if the game played out the way that it did, and the game and it wasn't chalked off by VAR, this could have been a loss, but it wasn't, so we take it. And I also feel like Palace could have had a penalty when Sanchez did his Superman punch and clipped one of the Palace players, but again, I suppose it nullifies itself. It is what. So let's move on to the lineups. You had Sanchez with a 7.8. It's a very high rating, but at the same time, I felt like he was good at the shot stopping. The only mistake he made, in my opinion, was the free kick, which didn't stand, so it doesn't really count. Distribution was fairly decent. There was a couple of times he overhit passes, but better than what we're normally seeing. Didn't really panic at the back, which was quite nice to see. And any shot that came his way, he dealt with it very well. Even in crosses, even though he did the whole Superman punch, he managed to get the ball away from his box, which is all we are asking for. Reece James, 7.9. He had a great game today. Ashrapong was 7.4. I think it's perfect. Like I said, the only thing I would say as a caveat is he did give the ball away quite a few times. Same with Chalobah, but defensively spot on today. Kukurava 7.2. I think he did play well, inverting well, trying to get involved, going up and down. Enzo Fernandez with a 6.7, I think is actually pretty fair. He was just a bit off it today. Playing in wider areas. Palmer with a 6.5. We'll get to him in a second, but I kind of see it. I kind of don't. Caicedo with a 7.5. I think that's fair. Caicedo with a typical Caicedo performance. But the first 10-15 looked very, very shaky, which is just very unlike Caicedo, if I'm being honest. Neto on the right-hand side, 7.3. He had a really good game for me today. He was always trying to create something, just driving all the time. Palmer with a 6.5. Again, he was always trying to get involved, but nothing really came off for him. So some people were saying he's very, very quiet, but when you're watching him, he's always trying to, get into pockets of space, try and spin the ball in, trying to create chances. It just didn't come off for him today. That was literally it. Gittens with a 7. I would think that's massively high, if I'm being honest. I'm not saying he was atrocious, but I just felt like he struggled to get in the game. He was trying to be positive every time he got the ball, but it just didn't really fall for him in the right way. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know your thoughts down below. João Pedro with a 5.9. Probably is about right, to be fair. 5.9, 6.2, that sort of region. Purely because, again, he just didn't get any service. He was trying, he was pressing, he was getting in front of himself about a bit, but just didn't get any service. And I think that's just how it played out, to be honest. I think it's relatively fair. So I actually I agree with those ratings, if I'm being honest. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding the player ratings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. So do you agree with my post-match analysis? What do you think of Enzo Maresca's post-match comments? And do you agree with the stats from FootMob? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. If you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that. You're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.